California regulators just made a stunning reversal on Trump-era pollution rules, and this could shake up the entire auto industry. What does this mean for car manufacturers, the environment, and you? Stick around because we're diving deep into this breaking news. Under the Trump administration, federal emissions standards were rolled back big time, giving automakers more leeway when it came to pollution. The justification: economic growth, industry flexibility, and reducing regulatory burdens. But California, a state that has led the charge on climate change for decades, didn't take this lightly. They fought back, pushing for stricter emissions and even clashing with the EPA. Fast forward to today, California regulators have made an absolutely jaw-dropping reversal on these pollution rules. And it's not just about flipping the script, it's about making a statement. So, what exactly happened? Well, the California Air Resources Board, also known as CARB, just announced that they're bringing back stricter emissions standards and setting the stage for even tougher regulations in the coming years. In other words, they're saying no thanks to Trump's relaxed pollution rules and doubling down on their commitment to a greener future. Now, here's where things get really interesting. This move isn't just about California, it's about everyone. Why? Because California's vehicle emissions policies often influence national standards. Many states follow California's lead, and automakers don't want to produce different cars for different regulations, meaning this decision could force the entire industry to pivot toward cleaner technology. Let's talk impact. First, on the car industry, automakers will now have to accelerate their transition to electric and hybrid vehicles. Big players like Ford, GM, and even Toyota have been slowly moving in that direction, but this decision might just put the pedal to the metal. Then there's the environment. Scientists and activists have long warned about the consequences of air pollution and carbon emissions. Rolling back these Trump-era policies could mean huge reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, cleaner air, and a step toward fighting climate change. But is it enough? Some argue that we need even stronger measures. And of course, we have to talk about you, the consumers. What does this mean if you're shopping for a new car? Well, expect a bigger push toward EVs, hybrids, and more fuel-efficient gasoline cars. Gas guzzlers? They could soon be a thing of the past. But what about car prices? Could this make vehicles more expensive in the short term? That's a big question automakers will have to answer. Speaking of Washington, how does the Biden administration fit into all of this? Well, President Biden has already been pushing for stricter climate policies and a major shift toward electric vehicles. So, California's move actually helps push that federal agenda forward. But could we see more legal battles ahead? Not everyone is happy about this decision, especially industries tied to fossil fuels. So, what happens next? Will other states follow California's lead? Will automakers push back? Could we see another legal showdown? One thing's for sure, this fight is far from over. For years, California has been at the forefront of environmental regulations, setting aggressive standards for emissions and pushing hard for the transition to electric vehicles. Automakers were scrambling to comply with mandates requiring a shift away from gas-powered vehicles. But now, things have changed. So what exactly happened? And why? Well, here's the deal. California regulators, who were once adamant about phasing out internal combustion engines by 2035, have just announced a surprising policy shift. Sources say that growing concerns over EV infrastructure, affordability, and consumer demand have forced regulators to rethink their aggressive stance. Instead of a complete ban on gas cars, they are now considering a more gradual transition. First, automakers like Ford, GM, and Toyota had already invested billions into EV production to align with California's strict rules. This sudden shift might mean that those plans need to be reevaluated. Some automakers might slow down their EV rollout, while others could take advantage of the relaxed regulations to balance gas, hybrid, and electric vehicle production. Tesla, for example, which has been a major winner in California's push for electrification, might now face increased competition as traditional automakers recalibrate their strategies. Now, what about you, the consumer? Here's where things get interesting. With a more flexible transition plan, buyers may have more choices and won't be forced into EVs before they're ready. This could also mean that gas-powered cars remain available at lower prices for a longer time. However, it might slow down incentives for EV infrastructure growth, which could make charging accessibility an issue in the long run. What we're seeing is a balancing act. While California still aims for lower emissions, they are acknowledging that a one-size-fits-all approach may not be practical given the current market conditions. But wait, this isn't just a California issue. Because of the state's influence on national policy, this reversal could impact other states and even federal regulations. Could we see the Biden administration or other states adjusting their EV mandates? That's something to watch closely. Some states, like New York and Washington, often follow California's lead on environmental policies. If they adjust their timelines too, automakers may find themselves navigating an even more complex regulatory landscape. So, where do we go from here? This reversal could actually spark a surge in hybrid vehicle production. With a less aggressive phase out of gas cars, automakers might focus more on plug-in hybrids as a middle ground solution. It also raises questions about charging infrastructure investments. If EV adoption slows, will governments and private companies continue investing at the same rate? There's a lot of uncertainty right now. California regulators just made a stunning reversal, and the entire auto industry is feeling the shockwaves. For years, California has been at the forefront of strict emissions regulations, pushing automakers to accelerate their EV transitions. But now, a major policy shift has thrown everything into question. So, what happened? And more importantly, what are the biggest disadvantages this sudden U-turn poses for automakers? Buckle up, because this is going to be a wild ride. California has long been the leader in setting tough emissions standards, often more aggressive than federal regulations. Automakers spent billions preparing for a future dominated by electric vehicles, investing in battery tech, redesigning factories, and even committing to ambitious EV production targets. But now, with this unexpected rollback, companies are left scrambling. The biggest issue? Uncertainty. With shifting policies, automakers struggle to plan long-term investments, and this inconsistency could lead to production slowdowns, financial losses, and wasted R&D spending. And it doesn't stop there. Automakers who bet big on EV may now face declining incentives, potential shifts in consumer demand, and a marketplace that's more unpredictable than ever. This move could even open the door for legal battles between automakers, California lawmakers, and federal agencies. Not to mention competitors like China and Europe, who have stayed consistent with their EV goals, may gain an edge while American companies are stuck navigating this regulatory chaos. So, what does this mean for you as a consumer? Will EV prices go up? Will gas cars stick around longer? And how will automakers pivot after this regulatory bombshell? Stick around, because we're breaking it all down. So, why did California hit the brakes? There are a few key reasons. First, the EV industry is facing serious growing pains. Supply chain disruptions, especially for critical minerals like lithium, cobalt, and nickel, have caused battery costs to skyrocket. Automakers are struggling to meet demand while keeping EV prices affordable for consumers. Second, the political landscape is shifting. With upcoming elections and concerns over economic stability, California regulators are facing mounting pressure from automakers, labor unions, and even federal lawmakers to ease restrictions. And third, Let's talk about the consumer reality. EV adoption is growing, but not as fast as regulators hoped. Range anxiety, high prices, and a still developing charging infrastructure mean that millions of drivers aren't ready to go fully electric just yet. So, instead of forcing a rapid shift, California seems to be recalibrating its strategy. Now, here's where things get messy. This reversal is bad news for automakers, and here's why. First off, it creates massive uncertainty. For years, major brands like Ford, GM, and Tesla have spent billions of dollars ramping up EV production, thinking California's strict policies would drive nationwide adoption. With this sudden shift, companies are left wondering, should they keep investing heavily in EVs or slow down and refocus on hybrids and gas-powered models? This type of regulatory whiplash is a nightmare for business planning. Next, let's talk about financial losses. Some companies already phased out gas-powered models in anticipation of California's original policies.